5 when ready.
Say what again? Say what again? What are you gonna do? Bleed on me? I'm invincible!
I drink your
Milkshake!
not from a Jedi.
Good day, listeners. This is a first rendition of a podcast called Cynical Discharge. I'm Buchanan. I'm sitting here with my good friend Maxim.
Hey, Bucky. Just gonna pretend for the sake of the podcast, this is the first time we've seen each other all day.
Well, as well you should. Max and I are doing this podcast to discuss, I think, our biggest passion in life, which is movies, going to them, talking about them. So let's dive right in. Today we're going to be talking about our mutual film of 2017, Get Out, the Jordan Peele directorial debut, which he calls a horror film. Max and I did disagree slightly and say while there are horrific elements to it, it is for sure just a dark comedy. But a very good one at that.
Yeah, for sure, and critically acclaimed critically and by audiences. I mean, it's holding a 99% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. I read the one review that was negative of it. Didn't agree, but that's what being a critic's all about. So, from our endorsement, if you haven't seen this film yet, go see it. It is excellent. I myself am not typically a horror fan, but this is my film of the year so far. I am a huge fan, and as I said earlier, traditionally avoid horror films. So
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that's a good note to start out on by saying right away, spoilers. If you haven't seen it, go see it, because Max and I are going to be diving right in. So let's get to it. Okay, so let's get the ball rolling and just talk about what we liked in the film. There's an awful lot to it that we liked.
yeah, for such a simple story, there are some complex elements to it, particularly the themes. The most notable one is the theme of racism. Racism is treated very passively in this film. There's none of the characters are... I guess you could say identify as racists. They say some racial remarks, but you don't hear the N-word ever. No,
not at all. In fact, it almost seems like unintentional racism, kind of in the way that you hear some people say, "Oh, well, of course they're good with money. They're Jewish," or of course they're good at math. They're Chinese. It's not negative, but it is a racist comment to make. It's an offensive comment to make about somebody, and this movie definitely has that in spades.
Yeah, it's also quite ominous. This film isn't happy at all, with the exception of one character. It's Rod, right? Who's there strictly for comedic relief, and he's a great character on top of that. Isolation is another theme. The whole hypnosis, falling into the sunken space, and being able to see your life but not do anything about it. Obviously you could kind of go into that a little bit deeper too. Maybe Jordan Peele's trying to make a comment that that's what a lot of black people feel. They feel as if, they're kind of witnessing things and unable to change the system or whatever. Yeah, we both saw it. It was an interview, or if I can't remember if he was on the Nerdist podcast or something, it was saying one of his inspirations for writing and directing this film was his experiences as the one black guy at a party.
Yeah, absolutely. And in the party scene, the rich old white people basically treat the main character Chris, the protagonist, almost like a novelty.
Yeah, he is an object. They're all interested by him, but you find out later that is because they're interested in bidding on him and utilizing him as for the sake of a lobotomy, to put someone else's brain and consciousness in the body of Chris, and give them extended life and the functions of a young, healthy body.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's actually funny that you say that because, like, again, I think we've talked about this before. In talking about the plot, it sounds ridiculous. Like, this sounds like if I told you the plot to this movie without you ever hearing about it, would you go see it?
No, and credit to Jordan Peele. I bet he had a tough time pitching this to studios. There's no way if someone just said this story to me that I would say, yeah, I'll invest.
Well, yeah, exactly. Because, like, what's your elevator pitch? It's like, okay, so it's like, guess who's coming to dinner? But with Frankenstein and
racism,
and all this kind of stuff,
yeah.
And like, I don't see how he would, obviously on his name alone, but frankly, if I were a studio head and I read the script, you'd be stupid not to invest in this. It's a cheap movie, not.
But it doesn't feel cheap though.
No,
I mean there's no A-list celebrities in it, but that's almost appreciative. The film feels far more immersive that way. The only actor who I'd seen in that before is Bradley Whitford.
Yeah.
Allison Williams, I don't watch Girls. I'm not familiar with the actor who plays Chris.
He was on an episode of Black Mirror. That's the last thing I saw him in. He's very, very good in it, but I couldn't quite tell you what else he's done. Mm-hmm. The other actor that I was going to say I was a big fan of was Stephen Root. I pointed him out to you. He plays Jim Hudson, the blind art dealer. Like a venerable character actor, been in like everything ever. Really entertaining guy. And I think that's a fairly decent like segue point. The performances in this movie are phenomenal.
There is not a bad acting performance. Jordan Peele hit the nail on the head with the casting in Get Out. Just everyone from Rose to Chris to the Armitages, they are perfectly casted. No one feels out of place. Everyone seemed to, either be in their comfort zone or really become their character.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of like the best things about this movie is the fact that like nobody seems to be going into it like tongue in cheek. Like they're not kind of like, oh, ha ha ha, this is a satire, this is a farce or whatever. Yeah, they all play it straight. Like it's all played very, very straight and kind of close to the chest, but it's really appreciated. Like it just made the movie so much more enjoyable to watch. So, I would say that's probably, like, the things that we liked the most in the movie would be the themes of racism, really well explored.
I'd say the twist as well. While we both saw it a little bit before it happened, I mean, I figured it out a scene before where Chris finds the picture of Rose's old boyfriends and Georgina and Walter.
Yeah.
Bucky, you found it out kind of when she dismissed the whole story that Chris said her mother hypnotized him.
Yeah, I just thought to myself, I was like, well, that'd be fucking impossible. Like I how passive she is with, oh, mom hypnotizes people all the time. I'd have an issue with that.
Yeah,
I wouldn't give a fuck how common it was. Like.
Yeah, I mean, and I guess that's a good segue into what we didn't like.
Yes.
So what I didn't like about this film was the look of the sunken space.
Maybe let's like describe like what the fuck the sunken space is.
Yeah, so when Missy Armitage puts Chris under hypnosis, the final thing she says to him is sink into the ground, I believe.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, or sink into the floor, to which he falls into a sunken space where he can observe his life, but has lost control of his body entirely. He is motionless, lost all motor functions. Anyways, what I don't like about this, I don't mind the hypnosis and stuff. I think this is a scene that shows the low studio budget this film got.
Yeah.
While it doesn't look horrible, I just don't think this scene will age well. I guess it doesn't look modern. Like it looks like he's just on a set. Everything is dark, and he is falling, and it looks like there's some stars by him.
Or like lint or something like that in the air. Like it looks like dust in the air. Like and he's kind of like I don't know why I'm doing the motion, but like he's kind of like he looks like he's trying to like climb upwards. And I grant you, I would be too if that's what that sunken space looked like.
Yeah.
But I do agree, it doesn't look.
Yeah, he seems to be like watching his life through a TV screen, which is also kind of odd. Like Missy kind of walks up to him and then like shuts his eyes. And yeah, it looks like she's like to me. It felt like she was just walking up to a camera, not to Chris's eyes.
Yeah. Which, however, I guess it comes down to the point where I'm like, how else would one show that? And I don't know.
We're not directors, so it is a nitpick at the end of the day.
Yeah, it is absolutely. I think another thing that not as much of a nitpick. I think like we can both agree on this. A lot of expositional dialogue in this movie.
Oh my gosh, yes. Just watch the first scene. I forget the character's name. You know, he's the one who's abducted by Jeremy and then shows up as the party guest later, as the husband of the older lady.
You don't remember his name?
Yeah, I don't.
That's Dre.
That's Dre?
That's Dre.
Who's Dre?
That's
the character's
That's the
name.
character's name. Yeah.
I've forgotten. He's like in 2 scenes.
He is for sure, but yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, he talks to himself throughout that scene. So does Rod. All the time.
Every scene.
In every scene. Chris does a bit. Now, I understand that the director doesn't want the observer or the film goer to be confused by anything. So
yeah, because there is ample room in this movie for confusion. I agree. However, there are some scenes where like Chris is kind of like giving like a what the fuck is going on here. I was saying that because it was so weird. I didn't need to hear another person say it. Rod was the worst for it. A really well played character. Like who's the actor that plays Rod?
No, not sure. We can look him up.
Look him up, and I'll kind of briefly describe him. He's the TSA agent who's going to save Chris. Immediately distrustful of the Armitage family and going out there. He narrates his entire life. If someone hangs up the phone on him, he says, "Oh, they hung up on me." Well, yeah, motherfucker, we knew that. I saw that happen.
The actor who plays him is Laurel Howery. I hope I'm saying your name right. You were exceptional in this film, but Jordan Peele sure gave you a lot to say.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think we'll leave it at that. Like, look out for Laurel Howery. I think he will go far because of this movie. We're gonna see him in a lot more.
Another thing too. So Buchanan and I have both seen this film multiple times. Walking it out of it the first time, both him and I had the same comment that the CGI fire near the end of the film
was unnecessary beyond belief,
and it's such a small fire that like I can't believe it wasn't done with practical effects. Like I can't believe they just like didn't light like a small fire
in a studio or something like that. Yeah,
and have a crew, ready to extinguish it if something went bad.
Yeah, I found that very strange. I'm not sure why they opted for the fake fire. It makes because when Max and I first saw it, we said, why did the house even have to burn to the ground anyways? It doesn't make any sense.
To which the answer was kind of revealed to us when I ended up buying the Blu-ray and we watched the deleted scenes and alternate ending. The alternate ending, if you haven't seen, spoilers.
Yeah.
Chris is, the film goes the same way, but the police car comes up, and it's not Rod in the vehicle, it is the cops, and there's Chris with his hands around Rose trying to strangle her to death. The Armitage estate has burnt down, so there's no evidence, so he goes to jail, is visited by Rod, they have a conversation.
And Chris kind of leaves it as, like, I'm okay being in prison because I stopped this.
Yeah, really weak alternate ending. Thankfully, it is the alternate ending.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Yeah.
Because the one that's in the movie is